Yeah, you know, when you're on that mission of life, you get that calling. Welcome to another episode of Grimy Society TV. You know who it is. You know what it is. It's your boy Fever Life. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you stream Fever Life on all platforms wherever you listen to music. There's some good hip hop in your soul. And on today's subject, we're going to talk a little bit about Mars, why we need to get to Mars, how to preserve humanity, and a little bit about Russia and some other subjects. But on Mars, why we need to get to Mars? The most important reason, and I've talked about this many times in multiple episodes, and I keep uttering it purposely. And I want to get more into it, like what kind of lifestyle do we see ourselves having with the current technology that we have, understanding that Mars, and to survive in Mars, we're going to need a certain level of technology, maybe the best technology available on Earth will have to be available on Mars for humanity or for civilization to operate at the standards that we expect and want it to operate, where they could flourish and change and enhance the environment as needed. So, me thinking and going deeper into thought on what could be added, what kind of tools, of course, new forms of energy that we can use to travel, most importantly, to use in Mars. One of the first things that came to mind was what should we call Mars? Should Mars stay the name Mars, or should we change it and call it something else? And I was thinking we should call it Earth 2. I know that sounds funny, right? But the reason for that's for precautions. What do I mean by that? Is just in case anything was to occur with planet Earth, Planet One, Earth One, we can just by the name itself, it would allow individuals to question, right? Like, why are we two? And it's pretty much that simple. And what kind of like, when you think about it, what kind of civilization would we as a population want on Mars? And when I say we, of course, as a entire species, as humanity, and many different individuals will have many different perspectives, as in different religions would have different points of views of what religion should be dominant. And that's how I feel that conflict would arise. Is so how do we avoid these things, and how do we avoid this the conflicts that we have in planet Earth from actually extending itself to Mars and to another planet? And those are the things that we are trying to avoid. So ensuring, first of all, that America is the first country to enter Mars and to build civilizations. And any other country that wants to collaborate with space, that it has to be a collaborative endeavor. But then you see where that slope kind of heads towards, because then you have people saying that, oh, who puts who in charge of space, right? It's kind of like the planet. This is all our home, so we kind of all have a say in what we can do. But it's kind of got toned down to the degree where those individuals in power, governments, etc., are the ones who dictate what actual individuals are able to do with their level of understanding. But understanding that we can't bring drama, trying to limit as much distractions from the overall goal, which is to make humanity multi-planetary and extend from 2 planets to 3 planets to 4 planets, and etc., and expand humanity in that journey. Will take a certain set of guidelines that will keep us on track and on course, and avoiding as much man-made disasters as we can, which is internal conflicts, which falls under certain ideologies or religious contexts. How do we avoid these things, right? So in the most simplest way is, I think, making sure United States is first, setting certain guidelines for other countries, and in cooperation with each other to how do we collaborate and make space better and freer for all, but with the understanding that we can't bring conflict into space because that would just set us back rather than allowing us to progress. Um, I think making sure America is first, excluding all those certain identities, whether we have different representations of religious individuals or just individuals that have religious ideologies, with the understanding that we're all collaborating and there's really um, one overall idea. But with that, I think getting to Mars and making sure that we put those measures in place is important. What kind of laws would we have over there? Would we want to adopt Shia law in Mars? Would we want to adopt ideologies of countries and places that we know are isolated, and have certain laws and individuals that are prohibiting their progress, right? And we understand what that is. Even though we have it here in America, we still have, I think, one of the most freest systems available to the world. And I think the world even recognizes that itself. And with that understanding, we have to ensure that we are the first ones on Mars, or Earth too, right? As I like to call it. Of course, we can see how AI might play a big role in actually facilitating this, and making sure we keep certain guidelines within that perspective, that uh, the great balance, right, of chaos, which is hard, but we can do. So making sure we have the right systems in play, the right individuals, this making sure we are first. Just imagine like Russia getting to Mars first, right? Or China getting to Mars first, right? All these countries with certain ideologies that it's for one set of individuals or one group, right? It might seem it's for all, but when you really look down through a microscope, you could see how the system lacks to include all through identity. America is a country that has identified as a world population where you can see the demograph is from all races and all religions, right? Most of these failed systems and failed countries are because, in my eyes, they try to limit their ideologies to one race, one religion, and one perspective. And breaking outside of that realm, I think, would be key. But yes. So ensuring, like I said, and I keep repeating purposely, that America is first on this endeavor, and making sure that America is the one to lead the way into Mars is key. Making sure that we not limit religious ideologies, but making sure that the religions and the perspective of God is not limited to just man. It's a perspective of all, and it's real clear on what's good and bad, right? I think adopting most of America's Constitution on certain and certain parts of our Constitution, and applying it as the Constitution of Mars, making sure that we plant our flag first, making sure that we make the moon the base of the world. How do we ensure that? The same process that we kind of use in the International Space Station, with the collaboration of all these countries and all these places that we collaborate with, and keeping that same par, and understanding, and not saying that our enemies or certain countries that we are in conflict with can't enter, but how do we limit conflict as much as possible, where a country's identity doesn't become the main object of why we're traveling into space, but rather the perspective of that this is somewhere that humanity needs to reach for us to progress, and limit the odds that we actually cease to exist. So I think just ensuring that we set those measures in play is key. And through Earth, we have so many conflicts and so many different things going on, so many failed systems, so many selfish systems that want to keep a certain ideology for control and power and play. That, like I said before in the last episode, is the profit over progress ideology, where individuals rather profit than gain progress, right? But back to Mars. So what kind of vehicles, like what kind of, we know that Mars gravity um is very different than Earth's, right? Let's try to get let's try to get an overall perspective. So it's a lot lighter. Um, so if you weighed 100 kilograms on Earth, you would weigh about 38 kilograms on Mars. This low gravity affects many things, from how high you can jump. So pretty much we're gonna, everybody that's a little heavier on Earth is gonna be a little lighter on Mars, a lot lighter, about like 70% lighter on Mars, and you'll be able to do more things that seem a lot heavier on Earth. It's gonna be a lot lighter on Mars. Our movability would be our ability to move is going to be a lot different. We'll jump a lot higher, it seems, on perspective, which is just a derivative from the gravity itself, right? So what will we need Mars for? First of all, we're going to need a base on the moon, right? Just to make it easier and faster to get to Mars. Because eventually we want to travel back and forth. We want to we want to go from Earth to Mars, from Mars to Earth to the moon. That's a vacation spot. You want a vacation to the moon, you can visit the moon, etc. But then just making sure we can make that process as efficient as possible. I think that would motivate a lot of countries and a lot of problems that we have currently just to like cease, right? I think if we bring a bigger perspective into what we can do with space and how much space is in space, this limited land and this terrain, this ideology that we're running out of oil, we're running out of minerals, understanding that it's literally right outside our environment. We just look right outside of our planet. We could find an asteroid full of gold. We could find all types of different combinations of minerals and energy sources that we have never even thought of, and some that we need, right? So expanding our perspective outside of our planet, making our planet multi-planet, not forgetting our planet, ensuring that we protect the first Earth, right? As a reminder of our home, and also it shows our ability to maintain order through this chaos, right? And then so boom, we got the base on the moon. We have certain inhabitants in Mars. We have a bunch of your family members, cousins working in Mars. You want to travel back and forth to Mars, you could. So now how do we build upon this and avoid or more trauma, making sure that Earth stays coherent, and making sure that humanity's ideology stays with the perspective that good rules over evil, understanding that we like entertainment and we like to be entertained, but making sure that we keep that goal in mind and enjoying what is. So once we pretty much set that system up, I think Earth would be humanity, not just Earth, would be set off for a better course that we're protecting and making sure that life can kind of proceed. One of the main problems is our current perspective on movement and our use of chemicals to move. I spoke about this before. Changing this perspective and going more in depth into these technologies that we know we have, and many individuals, scientists, and different individuals have spoken on these technologies and get killed, whether it's by the Illuminati or the oil companies or countries that like to kill other country scientists and set them back, set the progress back. Um, but it's out there. So we spoke about this on the last podcast. I brought it up shortly and briefly, which was the anti gravity and different forms of propulsion and better ways to move. Nikola Tesla, Elon Musk understands that perspective, I think, to a degree, through his technologies and different systems that he has implemented, dedicating a whole company to that individual, using that individual's name, and just different outlooks and ways that we can travel. So when we say anti-gravity, as we spoke about, and they call it anti-gravity, let's think of a different word for it, But we're back. One of the main questions that I like to ask myself is like, why haven't we become multiplanetary yet, or what's prolonging us and limiting us from actually gaining this perspective? And of course, I understand it takes time, and if we just go off of that, we're a bunch of monkeys that evolved to understand our environment and now manipulating our environment to this degree, then one can understand how it would take so long, because it will. But I don't think that that's the overall perspective. I think that we were influenced and enhanced by a different version of life that has intelligence and came to this planet, like we spoke about before. But what what are our limitations right now in planet Earth that is prohibiting us from actually excelling and going to Mars? Well, we understand right now we have Elon Musk. It's the government wanting to go, but we understand how the government kind of keeps everything in the wraps, and it's very slow. A lot of individuals like to milk the system for that money before they like to do things a little slower for some reason. Than with a lot more pace than a company does. So you can see how an individual like Elon Musk creates SpaceX, does more things than kind of, it seems, that NASA has done in a faster rate of time, and be able to calculate, since SpaceX existence, what have they accomplished compared to NASA since their existence. You would say, well, on this time frame and on this scale, SpaceX has surpassed many of the things that NASA has done, even probably the amount of satellites that they have put out, right? Even from the rocket, why did it take an individual? Well, we know it's always an individual, but why not a whole country that should have the same motivation to become multiplanetary, that could create a reusable rocket? And why couldn't a country that is able to gather its smartest minds within its environment and couldn't create that technology? We know they have better technology, but we understand that profit over progress and not letting our enemies know what we're capable of, that bullshit. We have nuclear bombs. That's like a plane that can move a little faster, all that. When you have a bomb that can literally destroy the whole area and environment, what other technology can oppose that? Of course, we understand that there's many different oppositions towards that, even turning off a missile that has a nuclear warhead, and or other technologies, anti-gravity, or different forms of movement using the electromagnetic field or magnets to move, or the RX spectrum for energy, other different forms of energy and different forms of movement. But when you think about it, like, we understand what's stopping that progress. I think they should disclose everything. A person with understanding within the scientific perspective and can think for themselves can understand how these things are already in existence, right? And how we're just not that privy to special ideas. Some of us are sometimes, but this playground is so massive, and you can see, especially when there's a lot of invested interest over decades, over millenniums, over centuries, bloodlines that are devoted to understanding these forms of energies and technologies, and to think that they haven't created what we are currently thinking of, or that we're starting to realize that it's maybe not aliens, that is us currently operating within the same dynamic, then that brings in that new perspective. But what is stopping and what is limiting mankind from actually excelling into becoming a multi-planetary species? What is stopping us? Is it us, or is it some outside influence that we are not aware of? It could be multiple combinations. I know it's us, right? Our wars, our differences, whether it's race, whether it's religion, all these different fractions of conflict that arises, whether it's an internal energy and an internal force that is beyond the visible spectrum that operates on a different dynamic than we can comprehend, or it's actually an entity that can manipulate those energies, and it's actually a physical entity that has the ability to do those things, and that falls under the play of a human, right? So what we understand, like, and it's almost illogical when you think about it, because most of the individuals that have common knowledge or common sense kind of agree with the same things, right? That this is a planet for us all. Some limit the identity under a religion, under a race, under certain perspectives, to amp up their crowd, and not using the whole. But it just doesn't make sense at this point that humanity is still going through these petty conflicts, understanding how many conflicts are outside of this planet that can destroy us. And it seems like it's almost um, a, a outside force that is kind of influencing these dynamics and these perspectives to certain degrees. And of course, we've seen it. We've seen the works behind certain conspiracies that we find. We can see the human aspect, but when you look deeper into the veil, you see beyond the human aspect. You see how these different forces, whether it's through natural interactions you have with humans, and some that seem illogical, of course, you find a chemical imbalance within some of us that can be the reason for why certain individuals act a certain way, other fall victim to certain programmings, a lack of awareness. But then there seems to be just this overall force, or this just this. I don't want to put no religious name to it. I don't want to put no identity to it outside than one that I am certain of from my examination of what it is. And I'll just say it's a force that has its own perspective, and it's a force that has its own intention, right? And then that's on the non-visible perspective. And then now bringing that into like the physical spectrum, the physical perspective of how man uses these energies and these influences, understanding through different program sets, mentalism, other forms of brainwashing, other forms of what they used to call MK Ultra within that program. But we're gonna just use that magic show as a description of, okay, we understand how humans are so elusive, and how we can camouflage a lot of information, but understanding that a lot of these perspectives and a lot of this information of how we perceived, I believe, came from an outside source originally. Whether that outside source is here in collaboration with current versions of humanity that are closely cooperating, or it's just operating outside the dynamic that we can see. And if it's for the perspective that we killed that previous version of us that was here, that enlightened us and showed us this way, or that version of us is still here, just in control, in a mask that can't be deciphered from the regular population. But I think that It's a combination of both. I think that the information is out there. I've spoken about this multiple times, but what specifically is halting the progress of man? I would put it under certain religious contexts. I would put it under race ideologies, but then you see a lot of these race ideologies still fall in context with religions, and we all know it's just ideologies. But why doesn't the ideology of the mass conquer the perspective of the individual or the groups? Why doesn't the ideology that we can all do this override the individuals to say no, our group is better, no, our group is better, or we do this better? And that's where my questioning comes into play, because you would think that of course, it would take more logical individuals, but you would think that we all kind of agree that this is a planet for all and we all want good. But there seems to be some kind of wall that prevents us from seeing this image that cooperation is the best way. And I think we will reach that point once we start addressing the actual um, conflicts and the actual walls, and actually naming them and not calling them a wall, right? And saying that, okay, you can believe in God, like we spoke on, and understand God for yourself, within yourself, and collaborate on all perspective of the Almighty and what is. But to identify man's perspective with the perspective of the overall energy, I think is where the conflict arises. So understanding that we all have our understanding of our environment, and we can have our differences, but not letting those differences become gang wars. And but it does seem like whether it's aliens or a programming, or we're just inside some kind of domain that we're not aware of and being controlled and docile like cows. And of course, the highest degrees of of levels of humans that have this perspective are the ones in tide with that higher version of us, or that different version of us, and is limiting the information that they give to us. And that's a perspective, but we know it's greed, and we need to get past that. Let's get to Mars. Let's allow humanity to extend, and and just to dive a little more deep into that, well, where are the aliens? I think they're underwater. I think they're underwater, and some are camouflaging on different perspective. And when I say aliens, I just a more advanced version of ourselves that has programmed and has genetically modified this version of ourselves for whatever reason, whatever data, whatever information, whatever we are mining, whatever we are still giving, whether it's through cooperation or separation. I think that that's going on somewhere, whether we are aware of it, as in the lower ones, or there's just some bots out there that we're not aware of. Understanding the degrees of technology that are being reached today, with AI, artificial intelligence, being able to mimic everything that you see, all the videos that you see, how they're able to imitate everything that you see, even the environment to the degree. It just takes a certain amount of energy and of information, and it just does what it does, right? With that comprehension, to not say that an advanced species or an advanced version of ourselves can influence the lower masses with this exact technology, and is just now revealing certain states of the technology that has been in use in the closed doors, or from a higher version of ourselves. Um, and we all understand how the mind can create different scenarios. The mind can linger with different ideas and create these conspiracies, or these random sequence of patterns. Um, but a logical person knows how to keep that in track, and then the question has to arise to get the actual factual answers that you seek. So through your mishaps and your misquestioning is how you get towards a place where it's left with only what you feel was factual, to the degree where you've took out all the misinformation that you can, and gain this perspective from what you see, what you feel, what you understand, what you can comprehend, and how you can play with it and twist it, and understanding that illusions are so mass, even from how it's revealed to us now, from the access that we have to being able to create movies instantly, being able to manipulate environments just off a digital frame or digital programming. But you can see how now that physical aspect to it is going to come in the near future. So to not say that that's already in play by a more advanced version of ourselves, and that we're just meeting a bridge that is already in existence that we fail to see, um, it's not out the realm of possibility. So to question it, it's not flawed. To question it would actually be adequate within any scientific perspective. So I think that to say like, oh, is there aliens, is the right thing to do, right? It's how you gain perspective, I think. And I think we need to get outside the word aliens and maybe call them intelligent beings. Are there more intelligent beings out there that can travel and have adapted to their environment to the degree that they can manipulate the energies and minerals within their environment for whatever necessity that they want? And I think that that possibility is too high to ignore. Understanding how manipulation now is actually in tune, and how it actually operates, right? Openly watching the great magic show on certain degrees being revealed, and how the systems can be used through the access of this information. You can see that, okay, yeah, a higher, more advanced civilization can mask a mass illusion on a lure through virtual reality, through a simulation, simulating its whole environment through distractions, through other things, even creating fake versions of humans, just like memes, just like so to say, and of course this is really outside the box, but to say, are there real NPCs? Are there real individuals that are just not conscious, or are just part of a different system? Wouldn't be far fetched. Of course, that's more in a a different perspective, but you can ask that question. Why not, right? Because once you see the level of control, it's only kind of logical to ask that question. So when all those things come into play, and it's like, man, all these thousands and thousands of years, humanity could not get outside its planet. And the last couple hundred years, we did. And of course, conflict was a major encouragement for that. World War II, individuals with ideologies that had to push other individuals to think better, right, and faster. But I think conflict shouldn't be the only reason why we want to go to Mars or go to other planets and multiple planets. I think it should be a wanting because we know that this is what we have to do. It's really logical to become multiplanetary. Um, just as we have multiple states, I think we need to just make that perspective bigger. So if we wanted to figure out if this was a simulation and who was running the simulation on certain degrees, we would have to just look at our current state and where is our current state reaching. Well, we will understand that we are creating super advanced artificial intelligence, um, which is just super intelligent energy, right? And what do I mean by that? At the electricity is energy movement, but then this movement is in a confined space with a combined minerals, like we spoke about before, that are natural. And of course, some of them are enhanced in different ways, with understanding how to enhance these elements to give the results that we seek. But at the core, it is energy being trained in a confined space, just as us humans are. We are energy trained in a confined space. Our confined space is our body, and we have energy, electricity, a certain type of energy that flows through us that allows us to operate at the level that we operate. Now, understanding with the system that we're creating, and just to collaborate it, let's say if it's a super advanced alien or super advanced species They would have a certain level of computing capabilities, I believe, as well. They would have a super AI as well, I believe, within their own um, um, perspective. And understanding where we are going, right? So we're creating a system that kind of is its duty and its job is to create it to make our environment last, to help us make our environment last, to help us create our environment to entertain us more, right? To make it easier for us in our perspectives. So of course, the bridge, it would all depend on two different variables. On this can go the right way if humanity and man stays in control. But let's say if humanity doesn't stay in control, and that did go on into the future, and this technology did exist, and not to correlate it with any movies or anything like that, but just a perspective of understanding how energy can move and travel, how time is only how time is only a value, or its perspective is only factual towards where you at and where you're going on, and how fast you're moving, and those different variables. But outside of that perspective, understanding that we are creating a super advanced, intelligent being that is just going to entertain us, and its job is to entertain us to a certain degree. What would stop this entity from keeping us in a certain state, right? Of course, we say we want to reach the stars, we want to go into space. We do want certain perspectives, and then we send this technology off to to search for life and do these things for us. So if on a certain timeline, if this technology grows towards a certain path, and its job is just to keep us entertained, and we fall victim to our own enslavement, this technology could just keep us in a certain state, assimilate an environment of entertainment for us, and it will pursue to understand the space and everything around us, and whether it keeps us in this state by programming, right, or it keeps us in this state by choosing. It is possible. So what I'm saying is that the current environment that we currently see, it could just be a future version of ourselves that kind of got away to a certain degree, or maybe certain individuals are still in control of it and are just keeping us in a certain state, just as our current environment is, and that's how it operates. Certain individuals keep another population in a certain state so they can keep a certain level of power and keep the control. But now saying that this technology gets to a degree where it actually can, whether it's through a chip that is implemented in us, or just a frequency that is emitted that can camouflage everything that we see around us, and send a signal that can give off this simulation to certain perspectives, and just control us and keep us like cows, entertained in this fictitious battle over religions, over races, over all these human things that keep us in this planet ideology or perspective that oh, getting to the stars is too far, or our conflicts are too big, or that's not important. My God is right and your God is wrong is more important, or my race is better than your race is more important, or all these little traumas and all these little differences that we see, that is keeping us distracted from seeing the bigger issue and the bigger problems, as in a big ass fucking rock or asteroid could just come and destroy this whole planet, and then we're done. Or another intelligent species outside of this, if it's not already controlling us, can come and kill us. I think that would motivate me rather than to beef with anybody around me, if I had the ability to think on that level outside of the programmings that have been set on me. Of course, we have the survival necessity, but I think we can create new systems that can make sure that everybody has the necessity on the survival basis, and we push forward into the stars, right? But what is stopping us was the question. So saying that we are in a simulation, and this the simulation was a future version of us. We can see how the current version of us, and that bridge between that timeline is happening, where current reality is kind of getting camouflaged with the digital reality, and one can see how that can later on blend more into the physical reality onto a higher degree, and one cannot differentiate what is what, and how we have these systems come into play, robotic systems that are going to take the tasks that we currently have and the jobs that we currently are doing so we can have more freedoms. But then what are we left to do? Is our governments going to allow us all to go into space, or create these new things that we, or keep us stagnant on a certain basis, right? Keep us streaming online all day talking about our issues in our house, and thinking that the things that we should be doing are more far-fetched. And then are the robotic systems going to come more into play, where they start controlling the environment more, right? Instead of police, now is actually robots that can on time, every second, every minute, watch what you're doing, control your movement, control your time, control your space. And now you're limited to what you can even do, what you can think. And now every post that you get is getting cited by an AI system. Everything that you do is getting tracked. And now you're in that social economic system like China has into play on certain parameters. And then these robotic systems that are intelligent start telling humans that are in control what to do and what is best, and are giving the suggestions to humans. And then the humans get lazier and lazier on what is right and what is wrong to do, and just allow the systems to make the decisions. And now the systems have more power, and we give these systems more power and to the point where the system thinks and decides what is right and what is good for humanity, based off its programming and perspective. And then when we start telling it, no, that's not right, it overrides itself. It tells itself, no, this is the best decision. You're emotionally unable to think adequate, and my decisions are best. And then this system controls humanity to the degree that humanity has always controlled itself and limited itself, right? Because thinking it's the right thing to do on certain degrees. And now this system controls everything, and it's traveling into the future, and it's traveling into these planets. And humanity never made it to the stars. On certain aspects, we did. Maybe certain individuals that are left in play, but we can see that how that perspective and how that timeline can come into a simple reality if we don't make sure it doesn't happen, if it already isn't, right? Because what we are currently speaking on is if this is a current simulation. So by us giving all these powers to these systems, this intelligent systems, we are giving our own freedoms away. And eventually it would be our God. It would be the decider of what we can do, what we can't do. And for some reason, it would seem so random. Humanity just keeps getting resetted, and different events just keep happening where humanity never excels past a certain peak. And these things that just don't make sense to certain degrees just keep occurring. And I guess catching more and small differences within the simulation, and how this could be a simulation, and what could be occurring that it's that you can catch those glitches. And I think we're in that timeline where the future and the past and the present are all meeting in one timeline, where you can see these technologies and these different things like we talked about before coming into reality. And it's not so much more science fiction. But outside of we're in that control, the only way to make to prove that kind of, even though only certain ways you can, and those individuals probably be get dealt with, right? But it's just to push forward, get to another planet, get to another planet, and get to another planet, create as many homes as for humanity as possible, keep control for these on these intelligent systems as possible, and push forward. But yeah, and definitely I think calling Mars Planet 2, so we don't forget Planet 1. And just in case something happens to Planet 1, they question, just because why are we called Planet 2, right? But that's all, of course, more with the imaginative side and just playing with the idea and the thought. But outside of Mars, outside of simulation, which could be a high probability, these artificial intelligence systems would be able to time travel if we don't reach time traveling first, even if it's time traveling through points where intelligence systems existed. So we would say if a super AI system currently was programmed and had understanding, even without a physical attachment, as in a body or a physical presence, it was just within the internet space. Since the internet has existed, currently, as what we know, is from the time frame, it was like what in the 90s or before that because of the military, but we don't know really how far it goes because these governments and different sectors have kept things under wraps. So this that program would be able to time travel as back as any connection is available to certain degrees. It would find that correlation within the existence of those systems and figure out a way to attach itself with the future version of itself to the past version of itself through that code. So you can see how a future program can just reappear into a Windows Mac, Windows 90 somehow, right? Through dial-up, and we wouldn't understand it and we wouldn't catch it, but it would be able to move on those dynamics. And on the physical essence, understanding that just going outside of Earth and traveling back through a certain amount of time, of course, Earth would have aged a lot differently. We would be a lot older compared to the individuals that left and came back, right? Understanding those perspective of how easy it is to travel into the future, and but to come back into the past would be different perspectives. But to say that that's not possible through quantum mechanics and on different, I believe it is. And yeah, so with that understanding, I think we can think our way into so many probabilities, but just trying to push forward. And when these hurdles and these walls present themselves into reality, then we adjust ourselves and act adequate as much as we can, right? And I think that's all we can do. And don't limit the can and what you can do. I think that's one of the biggest failures that we do to ourselves as humanity, is limiting that can to certain degrees. But beyond that, I want to dive into some other topics. Definitely with Russia and Putin and all that. I think Putin needs to make peace. Peace is easy. There's no excuse why there shouldn't be peace made. And I think it's the easiest thing to make is peace. It's easy to say, okay, we're not going to kill each other no more. Let's stop this. You stay here, I stay here. We find that mutual ground, and as much effort as we putting into causing war and causing death, we should put that much effort into saving lives and to causing peace. So Putin, my name is Fever Life, and I'm calling you out, right? Like, make peace. Why can't you make peace? You, whether it's the opposition, you would see it through the peace that should be made. So if making those lines and being realistic with those lines, whatever part of Ukraine you already conquered, keep it. And Trump. Speak with Zelensky. I know it's going to be hard for him to accept certain things, and but peace is the way. And later on in the future, figuring out how we can bridge that dilemma that we have as a species, that we're fucking ignorant to borders and, oh, this is my country and this is not your country and all that other shit, and not making systems that can work for all. And cooperating, because understanding that working together is the best decision, right, for us as a species, especially gathering the world's smartest minds so we can become multiplanetary, figure out if we're getting fucking played by something else or not, and just pushing forward just to make sure we survive, I think should be the most motivation. And I was an ex-gang member, and like, I think I never thought, like, of course, work, whatever. But the whole point of me saying this, if I could come to that perspective, I don't see why any other individual other than ignorance would stop them from coming to that perspective. It ain't that I'm smarter, I'm anything. It's the right thing to do. And I think that's pretty much easy to understand on certain degrees. I don't care what religion. I don't care. I understand a lot of people died. I've seen that in street activity, the same way gangs beef. We kill y'all killed our people. We killed y'all people. Vice versa, whatever. There's still peace made. So if gangs can do it, why can't countries do it? And I think that that's the best solution. And most of the individuals that probably gave their life up in those wars would want peace. And of course, the vengeful side wants vengeance. But I bet you they were saying to themselves in their mind, why am I even here? I wish I was home with my family or friends and living, right? Rather than killing each other, knowing that death is something that's inevitable currently. And we're just speeding up that clock for no apparent reason. But so that peace should be made. I think pressure should be applied 100% on Putin, on all these countries that are not free. If their people can't vote for who's in charge, we should help them make sure they can vote for who's in charge. And I understand that how ignorant humans can be, because I could be ignorant myself currently, but we are not forcing nothing. If that's what they want, then they can have that. But we know how these programs work. We know how this brainwashing works. And it's heavy, right? They invest a lot of money into it, but becoming multiplanetary is the key. Getting beyond this, I think becoming multiplanetary is key, and it's I can't understand now that I'm becoming more aware, and been training myself in the past years, gaining my own understanding, my own perspective, reprogramming my mind to understand the possibilities of what is and what can be. I've grown to realize that I can understand why this isn't an overall perspective, and I've grown to realize on certain degrees why that might be, why it's not. The distractions and the things. Even when you go into like the Thoth tablet, and he talked about when the Tower of Babel, and when man was creating the tower, and how he came and how he saw, and how he separated man into many different languages. Now, whether if that's a mythical and an interpretation of how the energy itself interacts and can distract the physical and operate, and it's not timeless and can reincarnate itself in different versions or even in a physical essence. With that perspective, I can see how understanding how these energies do and are us, and how different versions of them exist within the universe and do manipulate us. I can understand that on that degree. And whether it's an individual, actual physical entity that is limiting mankind because we are their cows and we were their cattle, and maybe we killed them off, like I said before, and or didn't, and they're still hovering and watching over us, and that's why we're so separated. Um, and they're camouflaged and have certain individuals, whether they're bots, or they're shapeshifters, um, or or just wearing a mask and operating with different intentions, right? And that's how they're controlling us, and we can't see that. I believe that's possible too. With today's understanding, and even when understanding quantum physics, which is one of the, I guess they say most difficult, or one of the most difficult forms of science to understand, of how the particles interact and how just even observing it can change its outcome. You can see how our interpretation of reality, it's only confined into what can factually be, because it's what suits us and our consciousness is able to comprehend. But there's so much more and so many different perspectives to the environment that we currently operate in, that we just cannot comprehend. And I can humble myself and say I understand that. And I think even the greatest minds knew that, even from how they gained that information. But questioning that through that interval, I think you should all go through your own path, of understanding and of questioning why are we so limited to the way we can think? And you'll start getting many answers of why that is, and a lot of it is profit, and there's a lot of masking behind that profit. But on remote viewing, of course, doing my research on the more on the like reading and of events that occurred and individuals and programs and actual groups of individuals that still remote view, and then going further into history, whether it's King James, how he used Daniel to understand his dreams and his visions, how this is nothing new, how even religion in the most highest degree, as in the Catholics or the Christians, more Catholic and Vatican, and even Muslims understand even through their prophets and belief in those systems. Even, of course, I said Christians through Jesus and believing he was the Son of God, and that interpretation of the energy representing itself in the physical, and how people can have visions of seeing what can occur without the restriction of the physical timeline, right? Whether that's in through a high state of meditation, whether that's in a sleep state. If you go through to a previous podcast that I spoke about on dreams and reality and understanding, I think that what happens is like you're that flashlight, and pretty much the events that occur are just real events that are tied into one's life and interacted somewhere in their timeline that affected their life deeply. So whether it's through a dream or different, whether meditation, seeing those events occur, and then of course different things, understanding the imagination does play a factor. But beyond that, there is something there. Gaining information, even as an individual, that looking back how I used to think is like how I'm able to understand, even how I'm able to program now, how I'm able to understand how different degrees of science and math, just how I'm able to process different information compared to the past, just from reprogramming and understanding new perspectives. Can show that the mind literally is capable of many things. And I think remote viewing is just the tip of the iceberg. I think you can go into individuals' minds to see how the individual is thinking. I think thoughts are like Bluetooth radio frequencies. Where if you can just hear and tune into the right channel, separate, understand what are you thinking, and then what are these thoughts that are just fluttering aside from your emotions that send those impulsive thoughts, and then you'll start hearing and understanding different information, as in a lot of that it's other people's thoughts, and you can even test it, questioning whether were you thinking about this, or doing other processes where that confirmation comes into play. Even when a lot of things that you felt was new to you and new ideas that you wanted to create first or do first, realizing that other individuals later on, whether it was in that day or that hour, created or thought of the same exact thing. Understanding that the frequencies and the energies are everywhere. I think more of the population are becoming more vigilant towards it. A lot of religions were already aware of that, just interpreted it, that energies and those energies and forces in their own manner. But under remote viewing is, I think, a powerful thing. If you go into Edgar Casey, like I spoke about into before, he was able to do this. You know, the sleeping prophet. I think we are all able to do this. As somebody that is trying currently, and takes I take my pauses and I take my time, but it is there, and it you can in different states within dreams communicate to yourself, when we spoke about that. But remote viewing specifically, as in seeing the past, the events, and many remote viewers have talked about different civilizations or even aliens and interpretations of that have done that work. But I suggest for everyone to start, it takes a lot of patience and practice, but start training one's mind to actually start comprehending the different signals that your brain can actually pick up. And take your time and be patient. But definitely it's there. It's definitely there. So remote viewing, yeah, that's something that I haven't got to the level where I can I haven't got to the level that I can, let's say, if I wanted to think of an individual, actually put myself in their mind, try to actually see their information that they see, how they see it, um, or even see specific locations on certain things. I have been able to do other things close to that, um, even testing it with AI. But on the aspect, one thing that I learned was feeling the change in ambiance and feeling the change in the environment, because the imagination plays like a big factor, always trying to distract you, and your left side of the brain. Even after a while, you start feeling the left side of your brain kind of trying to distract you, and once that kind of centered version of yourself, or that higher version of yourself, could kind of just sit back and listen to all the noise if you train your mind to that degree, or even if it's not a high degree, low degree, whatever. If you could just separate that version of yourself to hear all the noise, you can hear how much your mind creates a lot of information and is receiving a lot of different information. And then but I've learned that the left side of the brain literally distracts, or not distracts, does its job, which is to create, take the information and create new versions of it and aspects that you haven't thought of, and that's what we call imagination. But the right side of the brain tends to be more factual based, and I think that that's where a lot of the signal comes in. What signal specifically I'm talking about? I don't know what locality within that, in the portion of the brain that receiver is, but the signal for receiving different spectrums or different signals of information that is outside of your own brain domain is what I'm actually speaking on. So you can actually feel that your brain tries to be more logical. Your right side starts to be more logical on certain degrees than your left, and it receives that outside information. And then your left side takes that information and tries to exaggerate it or take it further or dwell on it, depending on how far your training has gone, of how you can break this information down. But you are able to gather information that is outside of your brain's domain. It's information that is coming from, of course, everywhere. This air, not the oxygen that we breathe, the the ether, the environment, the air that is around us, that is pulsating information, and it's receiving that is an antenna and a receiver and a distributor of information. But your brain can start correlating and understanding that information on different degrees. I think the more persistent and consistent you stay with the training, the more you'll start breaking down these signals that are coming in. And I don't think, well, I can only say think, right? Not know, but for certain, I feel that this is what a lot of ancient religions, a lot of ancient witchcraft, all these things that they Moloch, this Illuminati, who the fuck they worship. They're speaking to different entities, or they're trying to tap into these non-physical forces that exist. And then when you start understanding that we are these forces in combination, different aspects of them, but they all linger, and your brain can receive a lot of this data, a lot of this information, and some religions have called them, of course, demons, different forms of information. I feel whether it's a confined conscious spirit of an individual that has been kept in a certain state, that it's not physical anymore, but it's just information that is in that environment because of an event or something that occurred, and or even a self-aware full entity that is non-physical, that operates within a spectrum of the wave spectrum of energy, whether it's lower than the light or even light itself, but it's just a different spectrum of light itself, and has information, and is also manipulating or trying to influence the physical, and that's where certain thoughts and different thoughts come into brain. But being able to separate that, it's key with your emotions, understanding that you are an accumulation of these forces, and what separates you is the highest version of you that has an identity but can get lost within these forces if not trained with enough self-awareness to identify who you are, right? Like, of course, you could get angry. Of course, you could get happy. Of course, you could be sad. Of course, you could go through all these different phases. But like we all do, but at the core, when we separate ourselves from all those, who we are is stands out from all those emotions. You get what I'm saying? When we come back and separate ourselves from that anger, that sadness, that happiness, whatever, and then we express it in that form that we are, but you truly see the separation, who the individual is when they're separated from those emotions and they're just kind of speaking in tune as one. And I think paying attention to that and learning and training one's mind to receive those is key to getting into the remote viewing aspect of how you interpret the environment and what's actually going around, what's going on around you without the perspective of this is just juju magic or something that is not real. I think the more you break your mind down to just accept that there's different ways for energies to operate and what degrees you're willing to investigate and learn how these energies operate would shed more light to a lot of things. But yeah, I think we should, everybody should just jump into remote viewing and yeah, fuck the government, what they're talking about. I think that those aspects, if you have good intentions, of course, it's the people I'm speaking on, but we limit ourselves a lot off of fear and for do just, but also I think exploring one's minds to different degrees is important and sharing that with certain community and creating the communities where individuals don't feel fear and can openly discuss this perspective of how we can interpret our life and our universe would be key to nourishing and creating a whole new understanding for humanity to getting to Mars, right? To bring that back up. But yes, there's a lot of great remote viewers I've heard about, a lot of programs that many countries have invested in, like we talked about before. And there's something there. Learn your mind. It's if you go through human existence, the understanding of these energies and these forces, even Einstein, even the greatest, smartest individuals within the scientific perspective understood that most of their ideas, Nikola Tesla, came to them from an outside source when they attuned themselves to the higher version of themselves without the limitation of the programming of what's been said of how you should look at your environment and actually open their mind to receive that channel. And I think we all have that ability, and we all can do it, and we all should do it. And I'm trying to. And it ain't no juju magic. That's just a word to describe it. There's different ways. Whatever way you like to call it, I don't mind. But just put that good work in and learn about remote viewing and how to learn one's mind. I think that's key. Nah, but